One of the strangest things about feeling lost is that your life can still look perfectly normal from the outside. You answer messages, go to work, wash the dishes, make plans for next week, and still something inside you feels unmoored, as if your inner compass has been placed too close to a magnet and can no longer tell north from noise. That is the quiet ache so many people carry now. Not a dramatic collapse, not a public crisis, just a private drifting that makes even ordinary mornings feel slightly unreal. This kind of lostness is exhausting because it does not always come with a clear cause. Sometimes nothing terrible has happened. Sometimes you are simply tired of being pulled in 10 directions by fear, memory, comparison, regret, and the constant pressure to turn your life into a neat story before you have even had time to feel it. In Buddhist practice, this confusion is not treated like a personal failure. It is seen as a mind that has wandered too far from direct experience and begun to live inside its own weather. Most people respond by trying to think their way out of it. They make bigger lists, search for stronger motivation, consume more advice, and demand a final answer from a nervous system that is already overworked. Yet clarity rarely appears through force. A muddy glass of water becomes clear, not when you shake it harder, but when you set it down and allow the particles to settle. That is the spirit of these 3 Buddhist practices. They do not promise to solve your entire life in one afternoon, but they can return you to solid ground so you can hear your own heart again. The first practice is mindful breathing, though not in the shallow way people often imagine. This is not about taking one dramatic inhale and expecting your suffering to disappear like steam from a window. It is about rejoining the body you abandoned while chasing certainty with your thoughts. When you feel lost, your mind usually lives in 2 places at once, replaying what has already happened and rehearsing what might happen next. The breath is the quiet thread that pulls you back into the only place where life is actually occurring. There is something humbling about the breath, because it is so ordinary. It has been with you through every heartbreak, every celebration, every sleepless night, every season when you thought you were behind, and every hour you believed you should be someone else by now. It asks for almost nothing, yet it tells the truth immediately. If your breathing is tight, your life may be tighter than you admit. If it is rushed, your inner world may be pushing you forward before you are ready. To notice this without judgment is already a form of healing. A simple way to practice is to stop wherever you are and feel one full breath from beginning to end. Notice the air at the nostrils, the chest rising, the belly softening, the slight pause before the next inhale returns. Then take another breath and ask, without trying to fix anything, what the body has been holding for you. You may find a jaw clenched around old disappointment, shoulders still carrying conversations from yesterday, or a stomach bracing against a future that has not arrived. Breathing mindfully does not erase these things at once, but it turns you from a frightened manager into a compassionate witness. That shift matters more than it first appears. A mind that is lost often believes it must immediately choose, solve, prove, perform, or recover. The breath interrupts that urgency. It says, before any answer comes, be here. Before you decide what your life means, feel the seat beneath you, the ground under your feet, the air entering a living body. In Buddhist thought, suffering grows when we resist the present and demand that it become something else. Mindful breathing loosens that demand and reminds you that you are not a machine producing outcomes. You are a human being returning to contact with life. If you practice this for even 3 minutes a day, something subtle begins to change. The mind still wanders, but it no longer seems so powerful simply because it is loud. You start to recognize thoughts as events passing through awareness rather than commands that must be obeyed. The sentence, "I am lost," slowly transforms into a feeling of lostness is here. That difference may seem small, yet it is the difference between drowning in a river and standing on the bank long enough to see the current clearly. The second practice is walking meditation, though at heart it is really the practice of making life small enough to be lived. When people feel lost, they often try to solve the next 5 years before they have fully inhabited the next 5 minutes. The mind stretches itself across a whole imagined future and then collapses under the weight of what it cannot control. Walking meditation answers this with a simple, almost radical instruction. Do not live the whole road at once. Feel this one step and then the next. Try to picture how most of us move through a day. We walk while checking a screen, eat while thinking about a meeting, listen while preparing our reply, and rest while already calculating tomorrow. Even motion has become a place where presence goes missing. Walking meditation restores dignity to a basic human act. You stand still for a moment, feel the pressure of your feet against the floor, and begin to move without hurrying away from yourself. Heel, sole, toes, lift, place, shift. The body becomes less like a vehicle for the mind and more like a home. What makes this practice powerful is not slowness for its own sake. It is the discovery that you do not need to know the entire map to take an honest step. Many people are suffering not because they lack intelligence, but because they keep waiting for total certainty before they move. Yet certainty is rarely given in advance. More often, life reveals itself one lived moment at a time. Walking meditation trains you to trust contact over prediction. It teaches the nervous system that reality can be met gradually, without panic. You do not need a retreat center or a beautiful garden to do this. A hallway, a sidewalk, a kitchen floor, a parking lot before work, any ordinary patch of earth will do. As you walk, let your attention rest on the sensation of movement instead of the story in your head. If thoughts rush in, do not wrestle with them. Let them pass like traffic in the distance and return to the fact of one foot touching down. The miracle of this practice is not that the mind becomes empty. It is that you stop believing every thought deserves your full loyalty. There is another layer here that matters deeply when you feel directionless. Walking meditation softens the fantasy that your life must be resolved in one grand insight. Often the next right thing is very small. Drink water, answer one honest email, step outside for 5 minutes, apologize, rest, begin again. The mind despises small steps when it is hungry for dramatic transformation, yet real change is usually built from quiet repetitions. A path appears under the feet of the person willing to walk it, not merely imagine it. The third practice is loving kindness, and it may be the most important one of all, because many people who feel lost are not only confused, they are at war with themselves. Beneath the search for meaning, there is often a harsh private voice saying, "You should have figured this out by now. You are falling behind. You wasted time. You missed your chance. Other people are stronger than you." That voice can become so familiar that it sounds like reason. In Buddhist practice, loving kindness is how we stop mistaking cruelty for clarity. Loving kindness does not mean pretending everything is fine. It does not ask you to become vague, passive, or falsely cheerful. It asks something more difficult and more honest. Can you meet your pain without adding punishment to it? You sit quietly and offer simple phrases toward yourself, not as magic words, but as a new posture of attention. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I trust this moment enough to stay. May I learn how to care for this life, even before I fully understand it. At first, many people resist this practice because it feels undeserved. That resistance reveals how much suffering has been built on the belief that kindness must be earned through performance. Yet a wounded mind does not become wise through contempt. It becomes defensive, numb, or desperate. Loving kindness interrupts that cycle. It gives the frightened parts of you a different climate to live in. One where healing is possible because fear is not being chased by more fear. This practice becomes even more powerful when you widen it beyond yourself. Once you have offered kindness inward, you can include others who are also trying to hold their lives together in quiet rooms all over the world. The parent awake at 3 a.m., wondering if they are doing enough. The man on a train staring through the window because he is too tired to explain what hurts. The young woman smiling through a conversation while secretly afraid she has chosen the wrong life. To remember that confusion is shared is to feel less isolated inside it. There is great relief in that recognition. The lostness you carry is personal, but it is not proof that you are uniquely broken. It is part of being human in a world that changes quickly and asks a lot from the heart. Loving kindness does not hand you a final plan, yet it gives you something just as necessary, a way of remaining tender while the plan is still unclear. Sometimes that tenderness is what keeps a difficult season from becoming a permanent identity. Under these 3 practices, there are 3 myths quietly falling apart. The first myth says that if you could just think hard enough, you would finally force life into order. Mindful breathing answers this by returning you to direct experience, where you remember that clarity begins with contact, not control. The second myth says you must see the entire future before you can move. Walking meditation answers that by proving the body can proceed one real step at a time. The third myth says self-judgment will somehow sharpen you into wisdom. Loving kindness reveals the opposite. Harshness scrambles the mind, while kindness makes honest seeing possible. This is why these practices matter, far beyond formal meditation. They slowly change the kind of relationship you have with uncertainty. Instead of treating uncertainty as a threat that must be defeated, you begin to meet it as weather passing through a larger sky. Some days that sky is bright, some days heavy, some days full of questions with no quick reply. Yet, beneath those changes, awareness remains available. Breathing, stepping, and offering kindness are ways of remembering that you are larger than the storm moving through you. Feeling lost often contains an unseen gift, though it may not feel like one at first. It strips away borrowed scripts. It exposes how much of your life may have been built on momentum, approval, or fear of disappointing others. It interrupts the trance of constant doing and asks a more intimate question: what is true now beneath all the noise? That question can be uncomfortable because it cannot be answered by status, speed, or clever language. It asks for sincerity. Buddhist practice helps create the stillness where sincerity can finally be heard. Imagine a difficult morning. You wake already tense. Your phone is full of unfinished things, and your mind immediately begins its old habit of forecasting disaster. Before you surrender to that current, sit at the edge of the bed and take 5 mindful breaths, not to become perfect, not to turn yourself into a serene person by force, but to arrive inside your own life before the world starts naming you. Already, the body receives a different message. We do not begin this day in combat. Later, when your thoughts start scattering again, take a short walk without using it to escape into more thinking. Let the walk be a practice of contact. Feel the ground, the air, the movement of your legs, the fact that your body still knows how to carry you even when your mind feels uncertain. If there is one decision you need to make, bring it down to one step. Not your whole future, just the next honest act. That is often where wisdom enters, through the small door the ego keeps overlooking. Then, sometime before sleep, place a hand on your chest or your abdomen and offer yourself a few words of kindness. Keep them simple enough that they can pass through the intellect and reach the heart. May I rest. May I be patient with what I do not yet understand. May I stop turning this difficult season into a verdict about who I am. Over time, these words begin to reshape the inner atmosphere. The mind learns that uncertainty does not have to be met with punishment. None of this is dramatic, and that is precisely why it works. The mind loves spectacle because spectacle feels like immediate change. Yet the deepest forms of steadiness usually grow quietly, the way dawn changes a room by degrees, until suddenly everything can be seen again. These practices are humble on purpose. They do not seduce you with grand promises. They simply return you, again and again, to what is real enough to stand on. There may still be days when you do not know what to do with your life. There may still be conversations that leave you shaken, seasons that feel suspended, plans that fail to hold, and mornings when your heart wakes up heavy. These practices are not a shield against being human. They are a way of being human without abandoning yourself. That is a very different thing. One brings numbness, the other brings intimacy with life as it is actually unfolding. Often, what we call being lost is really the painful space between an old identity falling away and a new way of living not yet fully visible. The mind hates that space because it cannot decorate it with certainty. Yet much of real growth happens there, in the unlit stretch where you can no longer pretend and cannot yet conclude. Mindful breathing helps you stay. Walking meditation helps you continue. Loving kindness helps you remain gentle enough not to turn a sacred pause into sin. So if you are feeling lost, do not rush to treat that feeling as proof that you have failed. You may simply be standing at a threshold your mind does not know how to measure. Come back to the breath until your body feels inhabited again. Walk one step until the future becomes less like a courtroom and more like an open field. Offer kindness until your inner voice begins to sound less like a critic and more like a companion. That is how people find their way, not by forcing life to reveal everything, but by learning how to remain present while it reveals the next true thing. May you breathe gently, walk honestly, and meet yourself with a kind heart.